Most people vastly overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, but they vastly underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years.
As entrepreneurs, it's so important to always fall forward rather than fall backward. The reason why a lot of people never make it to the top is because a lot of us fall backward rather than falling forward. Hey, welcome to the Wealth and Business Podcast. Again, we have a very interesting individual. We connected on LinkedIn and I was literally looking over his profile and I said, you know what? I want to have Matt on this podcast, because he's got a massive, wealth of experience. We were having a backstage chat just before recording this episode, and we've spoken about life, we've spoken about business, we've spoken about what this podcast is literally all about, which is going from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Matt is a international speaker, is an acquisition business expert. He is also an expert in business investing, merger acquisitions, SEOs. He's an advisor to high net worth individuals. Listen, the list goes on and on. So without further ado, Matt, welcome to the Wealth and Business Podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for having me on. And I'm humbled by your intro there. But it was very exciting chatting to you, as you said, backstage, though, about both our journeys. And I'm sure that's going to come out in, people hear those introductions and think, wow. But like yourself, very humble beginnings. And that's what I'm looking forward to talking about and hopefully inspiring your listeners today so they get some actionable insights in what they can do in their lives as well.
Yeah, interestingly, I recently wrote a book called The Test, Transitioning from the Ordinary to the Extraordinary. And in that book, I really explain a lot about falling forward rather than falling backward. Because as entrepreneurs, it's so important to always fall forward rather than fall backward. The reason why a lot of people never make it to the top is because a lot of us fall backward rather than falling forward. For me, the moment I mastered how to fall forward, I started to change my trajectory. So what was it for you? How did this begin for you? Like dealing with high net worth individuals and being an advisor to them, business mergers, acquisition. How did this all begin for you?
Buying and selling websites, Dr. Daniel, don't forget that bit too, which we'll get to, but that's our favorite way to make money. That's our main business these days. But how did we get here? It is because I think as a kid, I grew up in a very poor environment and came from not much money, didn't know any millionaires. And maybe your listeners can tell from my accent, I'm from Australia, but I was originally, as I was saying to you, my family's from Hull in England, and we immigrated to Australia with absolutely nothing. And I think that background, I never wanted to be struggling for money again, and I wanted to figure out how to become wealthy and financially independent, not worry about money. And so for me, that journey was through business. I know you've done it in real estate, which is a very, very powerful vehicle. But for whatever reason, I got addicted very quickly when I got into my first business. I think in less than 24 hours, I suddenly realized this is what I want to do in life. I was studying zoology at the time at university, which is another story. But that's how I met my wife. And I got her involved in this business with family help, little tiny manufacturing business. And like I said, within 24 hours, we're addicted. I handed in my resignation for my zoology thing and handed back the grant money that I had. And we just went for it with business. And I think from that day on, our mission was to figure out how do you make money out of business. Because I tell you now, it looks impressive where we're now, but it was really, really hard. Talk about falling backwards, how you said in your book. It was a tough gig in our first business because none of our family are from business. No one in our family were were ever entrepreneurs. So we had to learn everything ourselves out of books and going to courses and things. And that was our journey. So we started, for your listeners, our background, how we've generated wealth in our lives. When I say our, I say my wife and myself, is through buying and selling businesses, which is like multiple businesses.
Buying and selling multiple businesses.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dig into that, but just very quickly, I want to quickly take you 1 or 2 steps backwards quickly. You said you got addicted very quickly, regardless of the fact that you was not in business. None of your family members, or did you ever know about business that they did, but you very, very, very quickly became addicted, and you hand in your notice, and then you started business and you've never looked back. Now, wouldn't that be considered to be risky?
I guess in hindsight, yes. At the time, it was scary at the time, I guess, but I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, I think. So when I was in primary school, and from the age of being a little kid, I used to trade toys. That was my thing, and that's how I made money. And so, because we didn't have money to buy toys, or not many, so I would just trade up, start out with a small little toy and trade at school and things like that. And so my dream as a kid, and this sounds crazy, but it was the actual dream I always had, was to be able to make money out of thin air, like a magic show, and that sounds strange, but I realized getting into business, you're not swapping time for money. So I looked at my friends who had jobs, and they had to work 9 to 5 and they got paid X amount for doing that. And I did that during my school holidays and stuff, worked in labouring jobs and things like that. I was actually a jackaroo here in Australia, so working on farms and things, and you get paid, like you swap time for money, you get an hourly rate. But my actual dream was to just make money out of thin air, like out of my head. And that's what business allowed us to do. So when I say business, we didn't do retail businesses. We weren't selling stuff to the public. It was always wholesale import or manufacturing businesses. So we would create things, we outsource them, we get them made. And then if we were smart, we made more money. That had nothing to do with how much time we spent on the business. It was just, if we were good at the manufacturing bit or the sales and marketing or whatever, they were the levers that we could pull in the business to make money out of thin air. Now full disclosure, that was a 10-year journey, by the way, in bricks and mortar businesses. Wasn't a get rich thing. We didn't figure that out straight away. But what really excited me about business was once we started to realize the leverage that you could get out of it. And like I said, I kind of figured it out within about 24 hours, 48 hours. I just like, this is awesome, because the person that we bought the business off has said, I don't do very much, and I sell these spare parts to these big distributors. You see, if you go and talk to them and you can sell better, you can double the sales. That's money out of thin air. And that's what we did. That's literally what we did. We would get, and that's how we grew the business. And it was super, super exciting, really exciting.
Interestingly, the world that we live in today, when you watch TikToks, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, all these mini contents out there, and entrepreneurs starting a business within 3 years and driving a Lamborghini, entrepreneurs starting business and flying, private jets within 3 years and self-declarement of being a successful entrepreneur. One thing comes down to my mind for someone like you who've had massive, massive years of experience. You see, a mentor changed my life. My mentor changed my life. My mentor said to me, I've been on this journey for over 40 years, because he's got private jet. And he said he's been on that journey for over 40 years to have the private jet that he's got. He's been in the business for over 40 years. He's 60 now. So he's been in business for 40 years for him to live the life he lives now. And that was what changed for me. But before what changed for me, I also was a victim of the get rich quick mentality, because at some point I always asked myself why I wasn't successful yet. And you just mentioned in your statement there, it wasn't a get rich quick. It took me 10 years, all right, to kind of weather through the storm to starting to see light at the end of that tunnel. So just talk me through, in today's world where entrepreneurs, people are, I coach a lot of people. I mentor a lot of people. People get into what I teach them to do, and they want success within a year. And I said, no, you have to first set a 5-year plan, because statistics have shown to me that if you can hold on a business for 5 years, that's when you have a business. And then that's when you start to build. So do whatever it takes, set up your business, go through your first 5 years. You're going to go through turbulence, roller coaster. But obviously, a lot of people who are out there, a lot of gurus are not telling people it takes 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to build these things now. People say, I can reduce the number of that time. For me, I've come to realize, actually, yes, you can get some results, but that's not stability. It's quick wins, but it's not still stability. And if you don't understand, it all can go down the drain just like that, because I've been there too. So, and you mentioned get rich quick, 10 years. So talk me through, how do we now help people to literally, a lot of people were thinking they're going to probably go and research you now after this episode to say, okay, he's got some amazing results, because we're going to be talking about some great success you've had in your circle. How do we change the narrative for people to actually understand just the way it's always been, that actually success takes time. Things takes time for people to become wealthy. You don't become wealthy overnight. You can make £1 today, but to be wealthy, it takes a lot. It takes time to put those infrastructures in place. How do we change the narrative?
Well, two things that have helped my wife and I on this journey. Many, many years ago when we started listening to, the all-time greats like Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy and all that. I know they're American. They actually had some really good points, and particularly someone like Jim Rohn. And also Tony Robbins quoted this as well, and we listened to him as well. And it's a really powerful quote that's helped us a lot in business. And I believe it originally came from Jim Rohn, and that is the famous statement that Tony Robbins uses a lot. Most people vastly overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, but they vastly underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. And we've certainly seen that be the case with the clients that we've helped and in our own journey. So the reason that helped us was, like you, when we first started out as entrepreneurs, we wanted, don't worry, we were feeling pain, physical pain, with the lack of money. Like, we're always in debt to the bank, and we're skating on the edge of bankruptcy the whole time, because we're putting all our money backing into a business and it's into stock. And we wanted to get rich quick. Don't worry, we wanted to, but we knew we were overestimating what we could achieve in 12 months and we're underestimating what we would achieve in 10 years. And so, like you, what we came up with this idea was, and also we're lucky, we had mentors who we sought out, who we hung around, and we could see what they'd done. And we figured out this thing. Point number 2 was just a mindset shift for us. It was the importance of having a vision and a 5-year vision. Isn't it cool, Dr. Daniel? You've come up with the same idea. I'm just sitting here, when you're talking about your book, I was thinking, oh man, my wife and I, that's, this is kind of answering your question. What kind of made the difference? It sounds odd, but I think it was from this idea of coming up with a 5-year vision. We realized, as much as we wanted it in 12 months, okay, we're going to damn well have a crack at doing it quicker than 10 years, but let's come up with a 5-year vision. And that's what's always driven us to this day. That's what we teach all our clients. Doesn't matter whether they're starting out with nothing or they're high net worths. We want to see what are people's 5-year vision. And exactly like you said, I think that was one of our key, mindset success principles when we've been in business now for 30 years, 27 years, I think, like almost 30 years. And when we look back, honestly, it's the power of a vision. That was the thing that pulled us through time and time again, and working to a 5-year plan. Okay, you don't always hit your goals or anything like that, but man, you can make massive changes in your life over 5 years. 5 years too doesn't sound as bad in the brain as 10 years. You got to stay inspired and driven. And I think another thing that's helped us on the journey, when we look back, this is stuff's easy in hindsight, right? But you've also got to enjoy the journey, like the processes. So look at someone like yourself. You're on a mission. You love what you're doing, all aspects of your business. So like you're helping people by teaching them, but also doing, the real estate as well. So really for you, you've got, say, a 5-year vision or whatever, but also you love the process. And that's what Liz and I found when we've realized, I think over those years that we've been doing this, we realized, and like you said to me at the beginning, isn't that high risk just jumping in the business? Not if you love it. And that's for us too. So we love the process. So the fact that it took us 10 years to hit our actual goals doesn't matter when you look back at it in the past. So I know it's very difficult for someone listening to this. You're saying, show me the money now, Matt. I want the money right now. But honestly, I think if you can fall in love with the process of what you're doing to generate wealth and have a 5-year vision, I think they are two massive, massive winning strategies that can help you achieve anything you want in life. It's not just about making money, but that's what we're talking about today. But there's other aspects to life as well, like health and happiness. It's the same thing with health and happiness as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I couldn't agree with you less, Matt. Everything you said literally resonates with me because it's a journey. I wrote in my new book, it's the journey that is the success. Because when you get to your destination, you'll be like, okay, what next? But it's that journey, it's enjoying that journey. And I also spoke about, for example, just kind of reiterating from what you said, it's understanding that things take time. Yeah. And being purposeful, discovering your purpose. Because when you have a purpose, when your purpose and your desire match together, you say you cannot. The man with a desire will achieve anything. Now, add purpose to it. There is no holding him back.
Yep.
Once you know it's your purpose, you have desire. Even the days where you don't want to get up from your bed, one of those will wake you up.
Yep. And it becomes easy. And you know what else is important? You're just making me think of it. And like, I'm looking at you and thinking like how you help people with strategy, right? I think then if we layer in my opinion, those are the two most important things, is realizing it's going to take a bit longer than you think, but also this vision. But then I think the third winning part of all this is having a strategy or a system that you can work to. So for us, it was buying and selling businesses. For your community, it's through real estate, which is a hugely powerful wealth generator, no matter what country you're in around the world. Yeah. And because it's just so leveraged. But for us, our winning system happened to be buying and selling businesses, and starting out small and building up. And I think when you've got a system that you can just apply, so learning like how to buy and sell real estate or renovate real estate, then you factor that with your vision, you turn up each day and you do something towards that, and you've got, like you said, a purpose. That's pretty much, in my opinion, the winning formula.
Absolutely. I say this all the time. It's just take an egg, for example. If an egg is broken from the outside, life ends. But when an egg is broken from the inside, life begins. You have a chick. Yeah. All right? And I was in this same rat race. I was in that same rat race where it was about show me the money. It's about the money. It's about the money. Yeah. But this is why I've come to see the likes of the Oprah Winfrey, the likes of, now Barack Obama, who was once the president of the United States of America. Yeah. The likes of Sir Richard Branson, the likes of Bill Gates. It gets to a point, it's not about the money. It's all about the impact. It's all about how many lives can you change. For me, one of the things I've started to notice is that, yes, a lot of people get into entrepreneurship and it's all about show me the money, show me the money, show me the money, show me the money. But sometimes you find that a lot of entrepreneurs just keep chasing and keep chasing and keep chasing and keep chasing. And you get to a place of either burnout or being exhausted because you're chasing, you're not getting to your destination. in the last couple of, I'll probably say in the last 2 years, my purpose is more laser focused and more aligned, because I've gone back to now started to look at what has happened in my life in 22 years of being an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years, and part of it, I've lived in England for almost 20 years. And this is what gave me the inspiration to write my new book called The Test, because I look backwards 20 years of being in a foreign country, and 2 years before, whilst I've been an entrepreneur, 22 years altogether. And I'm like, okay, things started to make sense. Roller coaster, success, highs, lows, whatever we want to call it, things started to make sense. And this is one of the reasons why in today's world today, yes, we know people can, with AIs, now available, where you can, do things in a second, social media, where you can populate your message. So this is why some of us who've got who have got experience and can adapt very quicker, we can explode in our businesses very, very quicker. Obviously, the new generation who are very techy, yes, they can blow up different things, but then again, the business can go away very, very quickly without having, because it's the money chasing mindset. So, but just sitting down and hearing 10 years, over 30 years of experience, I'm like, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. To be able to build a multi-million pound business, or, running into, hundreds and hundreds of millions, it takes time to put it all together. Yep. I mean, look at the likes of Jeff Bezos. Started in the 90s. What is his business worth today? Look at the likes of Facebook. 20 years coming now, or approximately 20 years. So things does take time to get to where, they want to get to. So moving on to my next question to you, Matt. Where are you now? And how is things now? Having gone through those days, you're not doing, you're selling business in 20 millions, multiple, figures, just tell us how is things now, knowing that you've been through all the roller coasters, you've fixed up your mindset, because you learned to fix the mindset. Because if there is no mindset, if your mindset is not fixed, you can't create wealth. If you're busy, everything is confusing here, you can't create wealth. So now that everything is fixed, with your experience, how are things now? And how can people basically use your lessons to grow their businesses?
Well, the good news is, here I'm saying it takes 10 years. We now have clients doing what took us 10 years within a couple of years to 5 years. And that is because one big thing has changed in society, or for Liz and I, particularly buying and selling businesses, is that now we do it online. So we buy online businesses, websites. And that does let us go a hell of a lot quicker than what we did when we were doing it with bricks and mortar businesses, because it's all virtual. We're not restricted by having to borrow large sums of money from the bank anymore. We don't deal with physical inventory. And more importantly, when you buy and sell websites, it's a 24/7 market worldwide. So we're based here in Australia, other side of the world to you guys. The two biggest markets on the planet still to this day would be the US and then the UK/Europe. And so we've now got access to that with no borders whatsoever, because we're not transporting physical inventory. And it's literally, we just have what's called advertising websites. So we don't sell any physical inventory or stock. So these days, the good news is for us and our clients, this is what we're passionate about teaching people, is we just apply what we learnt with bricks and mortar businesses, which took us a decade to 15 odd years to figure out. Now we just do it with websites, and we were successful very quickly with that. And because you can start out very small, you can buy a website for like under $5,000 or under $2,000, and you can build it up without, you've got to invest in a little bit. You've got to put some content on it and things like that. But it's not like a traditional bricks and mortar business. So websites, we've found, give us massive, massive leverage on time and our money compared to bricks and mortar businesses. So Dr. Daniel, with websites, that has been a game changer for us. It's not like it was 20 years ago. And now it's even easier because there's platforms where you can buy and sell these websites. So once you know what you're doing, but I will say it still does take, an investment of time and knowledge. You've got to learn how to do it. You've got to start out small and build up your skill set. So that bit still takes time. But other than that, in terms of the leverage, we've found it to be a lot quicker. And it's very exciting. We absolutely love it. You can work in your Jimmy Jams from home. You whatever hours you want. It's none of this 9 to 5. You can work if you're a night owl. Or we're here in Australia, we live in an area where the sun comes up at 4:30 in the morning. So that's what we're up at 5 a.m. And I can, by the time 9 o'clock rolls around, I can finish up for the day. I've done 4 or 5 hours work, easy peasy, done. So absolutely love it. And we've got a family, so it's great way to raise the kids for us as well. So it's very kind of, there's no fixed hours as well. So that's why we love what we do.
Wow, amazing. I really love how you broke that down. So when I was doing my research, I found that you've actually done angel investment of to $20 million.
Yep.
You've done pretty well.
That's not of our own money. We advise, so what we do is we help in mergers and acquisitions up to $20 million. So we help, so this is what we used to do. We don't do it anymore. We're semi-retired from that. I'm out of it. We just teach people how to buy and sell websites. That's our thing. But what I was doing before I transferred over to that was advising high net worths in the sale of their businesses up to around $20 million. So we here in Australia, we're working with a lot of private equity firms, venture capital firms, and high net worth entrepreneurs who would typically buy multiple multi-million dollar businesses. So we got to know those people very well, and a lot of them are my personal mentors now. And we learn a lot off them, but now they get advice off us. So we help them because we've seen so many deals, and we've got a lot of business experience. So people come to us all the time and say, "Hey, Matt, I've got to exit a business, or I need to acquire a business. Who can you connect me up with?" And that's basically what we've been doing. I mean, we've been doing that for about 20 odd years, but now it's funny. Our mentors who previously we used to help buy and sell bricks and mortar businesses are now getting advice off us on how the hell do you do this with websites? Like what? It's all new to them because they're older individuals. And so now we teach and advise people on how to do it with websites. And it's really, because it's kind of a relatively new market. We started doing it about 10 years ago, but now it's starting to mature a bit. And there's some big players in our space now, which is really cool. So for us, we've always loved being involved in buying and selling of businesses of any kind. Doesn't matter what size. So I get just as excited these days at buying and selling a $5,000 website as a $500,000 website. It's the process is the same. The numbers are immaterial. It's just more zeros. That's all.
Interestingly, you say that. So just for those who don't really understand what we're trying to say here, because we're saying digital online real estate, what exactly is it? I know you've mentioned website a couple of times. So let's just kind of give a clear definition of what it is. And as well as before this, you was also you was actually involved as well in the brick and mortar real estate as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So because you referred back to these 2 points. So just give a definition of, digital online real estate and relate a little bit to brick and mortar, which is properties. All right. So people can understand both. And then, yes, I think that's the way to kind of look at it so that people can have a more understanding.
Yeah. So basically we buy and sell website businesses. So they're online, they're like blogs, like a food blog or a blog about how to play guitar better or a blog about gardening. Lots of anyone listening, you would have, any of those passions. So we call them passion sites or hobby sites. I mean, we can buy and sell any kind of website, but we have a very specific strategy. So what we're not is e-commerce. We don't touch physical stock. Any online business, that sells like physical products might sell jewelry or whatever. We don't touch any of those. We don't want anything to do with physical inventory. All we sell is websites that your listeners might have gone to, say a website to learn about how to play guitar. It can be anything. You don't have to be an expert in it. And when you go there, or like a food blog, so you look up a recipe. When you go there, there's ads on there. You click on those ads and it will be for something that you've been searching on in your browser or whatever. They're the sorts of sites we want because they're all automated. So we're basically like an online billboard. So we have this website. We get traffic coming into it based around a certain topic. Say it's a food blog, so people are interested in, figuring out how to cook certain things. When they're there, if they take an action by clicking on an advert, so it's like a billboard, then we share in the revenue with the advertiser. And basically, we just sell advertising space on our websites. Now, it sounds complex. It's actually not. It's probably the simplest business model on the planet that I've ever seen. Because it's just totally automated once you've got it set up. And the other thing is we earn what's called affiliate commissions as well. So if we recommend a guitar playing program, then we don't have to provide that service. This is where it becomes totally automated, right? Someone buys that guitar playing program, or say they buy a guitar. We don't have to sell the physical guitar. We just send them over to a company like Amazon and we get an affiliate commission. We might get 5% or 10%. So when people click on things, they're tracked and we get affiliate commissions as well. And we've been doing that for over a decade now. And most of our clients do it. It's really, really simple to set up because it's automated. I don't have to deal with any customers whatsoever. All I literally do is put the advertisements onto the website. And if someone clicks on it, I get paid while I'm asleep. So I literally wake up in the morning and there's the money in the bank account. Or normally it comes in monthly. You get paid monthly. But you can see the clicks coming through. And basically your listeners may have heard of this idea. This is why website owners talk about traffic or eyeballs, the amount of people that visit the website. That's why it's so important, because literally the more eyeballs you have, it's like a billboard. The more people that see that billboard, the more money we make. That's pretty much our job, is make sure people are seeing that billboard. That's it. So there's nothing, there's no fulfillment, there's nothing.
Great. Now, in terms of the real estate you were doing before, so is there any way you can relate to bring,
so not real estate businesses. Remember, we were buying and selling bricks and mortar businesses.
Yeah, businesses, sorry.
So in the past, what we used to do, we would buy wholesale import businesses, which are distribution businesses or manufacturing businesses. So literally we would import spare parts for, it sounds bizarre, but this is one of our businesses, spare parts for outdoor power equipment. So, for chainsaws and things. So we would import and export spare parts. So, of course, when you think that through, we'd have to have all these spare parts in a warehouse somewhere sitting on a physical inventory, like there'd be chainsaws and petrol caps and petrol cans, and you'd fill up a warehouse. Now, as a young entrepreneur, I can tell you that's really challenging. We had to borrow all your money. You got to manage cash flows. All your net worth is tied up in a warehouse, literally. And then you make money when you sell that stuff. And so it takes a long time to get a payoff in that sort of a business as compared to a website business where there's no capital outlay other than buying the actual website itself, because we're not investing. I don't have to have chainsaw spare parts. So we literally have a website about chainsaws and stuff, right? So, but we don't stock any spare parts. It literally just has ads on it. So it just talks about outdoor power equipment. People come there to learn about it and they just click on an ad or an affiliate. And if they buy a chainsaw, it's not through us, it's through Amazon, but we get an affiliate commission instead. So it's two totally different things. It's way more simple.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you breaking that really down really so well, because it's important to kind of get people to understand brick and mortar. You were talking about, was that real estate? Because in England, when we say brick and mortar, it means property, buildings. Yeah. All right. So, for those of you who, For those of us who are in property,
gotcha, yeah.
we refer to properties as brick and mortar. So when your money is in brick and mortar, it means your property, your money is in, for example, a house of multiple occupation, a property, a commercial property, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to kind of give clarity to that. So I didn't want to give you a clue, but I wanted you to explain it.
Okay, yeah. Here for us in Australia, in the business, when you're in business, we talk about two worlds: bricks and mortar world, which is what I call old-fashioned businesses, which are kind of physical, and then there's virtual businesses like what we do.
It's online.
I've got another analogy, actually. Maybe your listeners would appreciate this then. What we do really, if you think about it, there's two parts to us. We've got what's called the domain name. That's kind of like the address in your street.
Yes.
And then we have the website asset that sits on it. That's pretty much the house. And that's the bit that we renovate. And what our goal is to buy the worst house in the best street. So we want a really good domain name, but a rundown house sitting on it. And we come in and we just fix it up. Give it a coat of paint, so give the website a makeover, and then we just collect the rents every month. And literally we're buy and hold. We just collect rents. That's all we do. And then we build up a portfolio of those. That's pretty much the strategy in a nutshell. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. So you could liken it to real estate.
Interestingly, you said this the other day. I shouldn't be saying this on a live podcast, but I will anyway, because I'm already working on it.
Okay.
I always say this, I'm an open book. Someone said to me the other day, Dr. Daniel, the way your brand is going, it's important for you to start trademarking your name.
Ooh,
it's important for you to trademark your name as Dr. Daniel, because if you don't trademark it, people who can see the far future about Dr. Daniel can actually go and trademark it. And in future, you're going to have to buy it more expensive if you don't buy it now. And so we started doing that instantly.
Yeah.
You know, we submitted our application and everything else. And this is the thing. Sometimes when you become a voice, you're also creating a digital assets for yourself. So this is why, for example, the likes of Bill Gates, all right, if you go and say you're trying to buy a website for www.billgates.com, it's going to be millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's a virtual asset. So that's like the address. And then the house that you put on it, the website that you put on it, that's an equally important part, though. That's the bit that we renovate and fix up. And so that's why, Dr. Daniel, you're touching on a point there, and this is really cool for your listeners when you think about it. Anyone listening to this, you need to realize now websites aren't like what they were when we first started doing this 10, 15 years ago. You know, back then they were just pretty online brochures. Now they're actual, tangible assets, even though they're virtual. And so like you're saying, Dr. Daniel, you know, even a name now online, that's actually a virtual asset. That because you've built up everything behind it, and like with your book and everything, that's a highly valuable virtual asset over time. And that, so people don't realize, or this is what we want to do, is open people's eyes to this idea that there's these hugely valuable virtual assets sitting right in front of them every single day. Anyone listening to this presumably is on the internet. And hopefully now when you go out there and you look at these websites that you're interested in, like passion sites, like recipe sites, or learning how to play golf, learning how to play guitar, gardening, all the or how to get healthy or how to get wealthy, any of those websites that you're visiting there, start looking at them. And I'll guarantee you'll see ads on them. You'll see affiliate links. And they're probably worth lots of money. You probably don't even realize it. If they've built them up over the years, yet here it is, it's virtual. It's just things that you click on, but they're worth as much as real estate, physical real estate. It's pretty darn exciting.
Absolutely. It's all digital money, isn't it? So recently, I recently released a talk called Go From Unknown to Unforgettable. So this is where you start to build or become a valuable or influential person. Now, one of the things people don't understand is being influential is built. All right. You know, you don't just wake up and you become influential. You become influential, all right, by building it and by being connected with people. Does that make sense? And these are all digital stuff. So, for example, would be right now, we've got a trending podcast in the whole of UK. It's called The Diary of a CEO. by a guy called Stephen Bartlett. So Stephen Bartlett, talks about a lot of digitization and stuff like that. He started his podcast and his podcast blew up, became one of the most invested podcasts in the whole of United Kingdom right now.
Wow.
Just within 3 years of his podcast, there was a particular year he generated from just podcasting, he generated over $1.5 million.
Right. Wow. So now, that's a valuable asset.
Exactly. So now, if you probably find The Diary of a CEO, and if it's not registered and trademarked.
Oh, yeah.
And if you register the website and you trademark it, and he's already doing so well, like I just use an example. So this is like a masterclass now, guys. We're giving you a proper tip here. So imagine you do that, and then the time comes where he wants to buy The Diary of a CEO is not available because someone has bought it. And this is where you see people buy. So one person will buy the .co.uk, the .com, the .z. Every single dot that goes with it is the asset.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can't register it anywhere in the globe because this person has already bought it. So definitely ask Stephen Bartlett, he might want to, for example, buy it. Now you got your first client, for example.
That's right. And that's basically that's one part of the concept, that you've got it like a hole in one there. So you can, and we do that. We will register the .co, the .co.uk, .coms, and because they're such valuable when you get the right domain name. And that's a whole art in itself, just trading domain names and buying and selling domain names. But so your listeners may have heard of that, but when we don't trade in domain names, we see more value. It's a little bit more like what you teach with property. We like to own the property that's sitting on the domain name. So the actual online business that sits on it, that's the bit, because that pays us the cash flow. And so, but the domain name's super important. We need both. We need the address and the actual website asset that sits on there. And that's the bit that you can, and it's cool. You can buy them now. Like that's the other big advantage of what we do. You can get into this so in the past, we're used to helping out clients, they'd have to spend hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to buy a decent, what I call a bricks and mortar business, like an old physical business, in the good old days. Now we can get clients into really successful money-making businesses, or they can start this for under $5,000 or under $2,000 even. You can buy a domain name for $20, and if you know what you're doing, you can start building content on it. So it doesn't matter what level you're starting at, you can start out quite small with this and build your skills up. And that's the other cool thing. And that's why it's great for beginners. If any of your listeners have never, you've always wanted, like me as a kid, always wanted to own your own business. That's why when I discovered the online business space, I was like a kid in a candy shop. It was my dream come true, because you can make money out of thin air and you can start with virtually nothing, and you can have a play very cheaply. You don't have to invest lots of money. And that's the cool thing. So anyone listening, if you wanted to, one day look at starting your own business, based on all my experience of buying and selling, hundreds to thousands of businesses over the years, I would definitely recommend that looking at online businesses is way quicker and you don't need as much money to get into it. And it's safer than buying traditional bricks and mortar businesses.
Great. I think what we're going to do, just leading on this podcast, we're definitely going to be having I'm going to reach out to you. Definitely. Let's do a masterclass to the UK audience. We'll do a masterclass to the UK audience. Let's see. So guys, for those of you watching this podcast, it's been very raw, unedited, basically uncensored, right?
Yep.
So what we're going to be doing is we're definitely going to be, if you watch the entire podcast, so do make sure, just comment masterclass. All right. Just comment masterclass at the end of this podcast, below the link below. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be reaching out to Mart so that we can actually get a masterclass done. So the more people who type in masterclass on this, I'll bring back and we'll do a masterclass so you guys can really know about what he does and how, you can tap into this very interesting market. I'm very interested to knowing about this. I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's called the Wealth and Business Podcast, right? So it's wealth and then it's business. All right. It's not just really focused on property in the United Kingdom or any other part of the world. It's basically how to become wealthy. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure really having you on the Wealth and Business Podcast. Just before we go, Matt, now we spoke about your journey, we spoke about mindset, and we spoke about you came from a very, very humble beginning as well. I just want you to kind of touch a little bit. What did it take you to break into the high net worth individuals market? How did you become friends, with high net worth individuals, and how did you become one yourself?
I think, that's a really good question, because I try and answer that myself. I think it was sheer determination, but that's not what your listeners want to hear. That's the honest gut feel that came out when I had to think it through. But it was sheer determination because here in Australia, I grew up on farms. And what happened was I moved into the city when I left home at 17, and I moved into Sydney, and I suddenly realized, okay, there are successful business people around here. And so I just started talking to them, and I had to build up I wasn't very confident back then. I was very shy, and I had to build up confidence. And I read a book that, interestingly enough, Warren Buffett recommends as his number one book now. But I read a book back then called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that's what helped me realize how to learn how to talk to people. And I had to learn how to talk to these successful. I really looked up to these people. I was scared of them. I'd never met a millionaire until I moved into the city. And I think it was just from one of the places, this sounds weird here, we're being raw and real, right? This is actually how I met my first couple of millionaires in Sydney. I joined a gym because I had body image issues. I was very skinny and very underweight. And I joined a gym. And at that gym, there were people who were very successful in business, it turned out, and we're all on neutral ground because we're all in gym gear. So you didn't know who anyone was. No one was in suits or driving Ferraris or anything like that. It was just people walk in to train. And I guess when I read that book, I just made a decision, I'm going to learn how to talk to people. So I talked to everyone. And some of those people were successful business people, and I guess because you see them every day, I got on well with them and I asked them lots of questions. I was this super enthusiastic young guy from the country, and I just wanted to know how they'd done it and, go and have lunch with them or coffee. And I just built it up like that over the years. And honestly, that's how I started learning how to do it. So I got if there was a strategy to it, if you're listening to this and you're thinking like you're asking Dr. Daniel, how would you boil down the strategy other than the setting a really strong intention? Honestly, that's what my first step. But the strategy, I guess, was I got into an environment. If you had to break down what I did well, and I kind of fluked this, but you've got to put yourself in an environment where there is the potential to meet people who are doing something that you look up to. And so it doesn't have to be about business or whatever. For me, it was about business back then, but maybe it's even just looking up to people who are healthier than you or whatever, or happier. But put yourself in an environment where there are people that you can get to know who are doing things that you want to step up to their level. And that's how I did it. And then ever since that day, that's what I've done. That's always been our strategy. So when I wanted to get into business brokering and being a high net worth advisor, I had to just keep asking people, what are the networking groups that I can get into to be talking to these people? And it can come like yourself, like how you said, Dr. Daniel, to me before this. You spoke at your church. Church groups are a great networking place when you think about it, and different community groups. So it might be helping out at a local school, depending on the area that you're in. So just be thinking, if you want to meet people, where are the people that you admire? And one thing I found was I never jumped straight to the top. It always took time to build up through the levels, and then you've got to also generally help people and give something back to these people as well. So that was the other part of it as well that I learned on the way. Does that answer that? Is that that kind of? Wow. I don't know how else to. Wow. Yeah, is that strategic enough? I don't know.
I totally relate to it, because this is the thing. Most times people often think meeting high-net-worth individuals is quite difficult. I mean, I actually wrote a chapter about it, and I kind of introduced it in my new book called The Test. It's chapter number 10. It's called Pay to Play.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's actually called Pay to Play. So basically it means, from everything you spoke about mentors a lot. Mentors. You spoke about mentors a lot. And I realized that is one of the things that a lot of successful people do. A lot of successful people have mentors, all right, that they can become acquaintance, or mentors that they paid to get their attention. So, and what that means is basically paying to, buying yourself a seat on the table, or finding your way to get invited to the table. And in order for you to do that, you can either do that through paying your physical cash, or you can actually do it through serving. All right. So for example, if I'm looking to, one of my biggest, I have 2-3 business idols, or not idols, 2-3 business inspirators, not idols. Yep. People who inspire me a lot in business. So the likes of Sir Richard Branson really inspires me. Elon Musk, I just love his brain. I love his mindset. Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, these individuals are people who truly, truly inspires me in business. So imagine, and I know one day I'm going to see these guys, and I'll do whatever it takes to see them, to shake their hands and have a quick chat, that 1 minute conversation.
Yep. Now,
even though I'm not doing it today, I've already, first of all, set my intentions. All right. And I'm going to work my way towards doing it. Now, but before that, you have to start somewhere. So at every given point in time, I network a lot. I speak a lot, and I've not been able to build myself, some presence, authority, writing books, and doing all these different things. So depending on what people might want to achieve, because sometimes people just think that, it's not possible. No, the only way it's possible is by identifying your self's value, having the right intention, know where you are now and where you want to go, and then go for it and never stop. And like you said, the little kid running out around the gym and asking people questions, that was your intention. I'm going to go to this gym. I'm going to ask people questions. I'm going to get to know what they do. And I'm going to ask them, I'm looking for this. How do I go here? And that got you where you are. So thank you so much for sharing. It makes a lot of sense.
What you just said, which I should have added, when I started out, that was my strategy. And sorry, with like full disclosure, everyone needs to hear this. What Dr. Daniel said is just spot on. And once we got going, we obviously had some more money. So I started to pay my mentors to be with them, or I would work for them for free. So I'd do things for them. So just sometimes you got to volunteer and you get your leg up. So I would volunteer to go and help out very successful business owners with nothing in return, and I just want to learn off them. And they were fine with that. But then there's other mentors who I outright would pay a lot of money to be around. And that's also through being on courses and doing like high-level coaching courses with people who I really respected. It's a hugely effective strategy, but obviously that one requires a bit more money. Like we've spent a lot of money. One of my favorite mentors, really, really tough business guy, super exclusive. Like he's not a coach or anything like that. He's a very private individual, pretty crazy businessman. And basically it cost me $50,000 to hang out with him. And that was just, I had to do a business deal and I had to pay him $50,000 through that particular business deal. And that was harsh. Like I was surprised. He knew I had no money at that time, or hardly any money. And, because I sold a business and I had to give him $50,000 out of it. And that was a harsh thing, man. But what he taught me at the time, it was very, very challenging financially to pay that. But this guy is super successful. Like I said, private individual here in Sydney, but the stuff that he said to me, and he said, Matt, you're going to do better than I ever did. You watch. And even that one sentence was probably worth the 50 grand because I have done. So, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. It's funny how life pans out. But sometimes you do have to, I like what you said, sometimes you have to pay to play, and it's painful at the time, but it can pay off in spades big time down the track. So yes, paying or volunteering was then my next level of strategy for networking. And to this day, that's still what I do.
Wow. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for being on the Wealth and Business podcast. It's been absolutely amazing. I've had a very, very good chat with you. And I love the fact that, you know, this is not going to be the first time we're going to see here.
I know that, Dr. Daniel. I do want to say a big thank you so much for having me on. And it's just so much fun. I could be interviewed by you any day, Dr. Daniel. You got out really interesting stuff there. And hopefully your listeners got some really good insights off both of us there around mindset as well, because it is, at the end of the day, that's probably the number one thing that's made the difference in my life, and it sounds like in yours as well. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for having you.